So, hello everybody. My name is Viktória again, and I'm a project officer working mostly on restorative justice related project at Edinburgh. And our panel discussion would like to take the space to reflect more on the ethical questions which got honored through the development of the project. And we have three panelists with me. First, the floor will go to Theo Gavrielides, and Theo is a leading expert in restorative justice, equality, and human rights. He founded the Restorative Justice for All international institution and a relating publicating arm, the Restorative for All publications. And with a focus on justice reform, his work is bridging theory and practice to empower marginalized communities and advocating for a systematic change. I would like to go through all the other panelists and then give the floor to Theo. We are going to have Ayca Atabey, who is a lawyer and researcher at the University of Edinburgh and a consultant on digital futures for children at the LSE, and conducting interdisciplinary research at the intersection of law, education, and child-computer interaction. Her current research focuses on child-centered AI design and co-creation of children's rights respecting policy frameworks for fostering responsible generative AI in the school system. She has been a consultant on gender equality, AI, and data protection. And the third panelist of today will be Boglárka Jánoskúti, who is an expert with in the field of children's rights, migration, and child-safe technology. Her consultancy work spanned through international organizations promoting safer, equitable digital environments for children. And currently, she's an expert for the Council of Europe, Terrorism Europe, and Hintalom Foundation. And in today's panel, because there were many ethical concerns and questions surfacing, and we would like to particularly focus on the question of human agency and how the presence of AI can contribute of strengthening human agency, or the contrary, and if it's contributing, what are the conditions we have to take into account. And Theo is bringing us the restorative perspective, and the floor is yours, Theo, and maybe we can try the mic, or you just use your own.
Can everyone hear me? Great. Right, I'm going to throw things up in the air a little bit. We thought we'd change the format. It's good that people started talking. And we were wondering whether we would do a circle, and then we thought it was just going to be too big. I have done big circles before, but for now, I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to be moving between you. And when Viktória approached me to come to this conference, I was wondering what restorative justice has to do with AI and children's rights. And then I started to get it, and when I started thinking about the project, I thought you can't do this project without restorative justice. And can I ask first, has anyone heard about the term restorative justice before? Who's heard about it? Loads of you, great, amazing, fantastic. So one of the main things about restorative justice, and I know we haven't got a circle, but I'll be moving around, is human contact and being vulnerable and being close to you. Right, and we're already getting distracted by chat boxes and phones and laptops. That's why I'm moving around. And it's all about this interaction that we are aiming to have these conversations. And probably AI is raising the concerns that if we have AIs, and the slide of the project had a little robot in it, and just worrying that this robot is going to come between us and start talking to us, taking the role of humans to resolve conflicts and represent us in court is kind of movies that we watched 10 years ago, and we're worried that it's going to take over. Just disclosure, I'm a criminal law barrister. I used to practice criminal law and human rights, so I know how important it is, and I've seen in many cases, on a serious note, of children going through the criminal justice system. It's very, very important to create tools to facilitate the criminal justice system. Unlike the remote control with the TV, is how much you use the remote control. You can use it all day, 24/7, but you can choose when to use it, and it's about having that power. And that power is all about restorative justice focus, in my view, is shifting the power from the criminal justice system and the ways it's structured to giving the power back to the individuals, which is where this comes in. So I'll continue. We said we're not going to use our presentation, so I'm just going to make reference to it. And I guess, and I've got Restorative Justice Week on it, because last week was International Restorative Justice Week in the sense of kind of increasing awareness about restorative justice, and it's an international initiative that people get to know it a bit more. But it's something that you're already doing. So just to give an example, and there is a difference, as I said, between restorative justice and restorative justice practice, and most of you, when you probably think of restorative justice, you think of the practice, so diversion of cases through mediation and conferencing. Restorative justice is an ethos. It is more than that. So just to give an example, so probably you've dealt with that yourselves. I have a son, now he's a teenager. The biggest argument that we have on a constant basis is his messy room. Right? So the criminal justice system will instruct me to say, you're the dad, I'm a single dad by the way, you've got to keep the room tidy, clean, hygienic, so put some rules and some punishments in place, make sure that they're implemented. So Tommy, if you don't clean the room, you're not going to have dessert, or this and that. It didn't work. That room was never tidy. I could find 57 socks. I don't know, there's a sock mania. We have a basket, just put the socks in the basket. Nope, socks never went in the basket. Dessert was never served. Penalties were not honoured, so it wasn't working. But I thought, I teach and write about restorative justice. Let's just practice it a little bit. So I said, just have a chat about this. Let's just sit down, forget I'm your dad. Let's remove our hats. Let's just see what's going on here. What do you want? Because I think it's important that we keep you hygienic. You're going to end up sick. This is what I think. And then he said, yeah, it's fine, I get it, but you know what? The last thing I want to do when I come from school is just tidy up my room, or I'm busy in the morning, or whatever it is. Like, fine. I'm listening to your views. Let's just come to a compromise. Let's just come to a solution together. And it's like, okay, fine. So this is how it's going to happen. You're going to tidy up and blah, 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 blah. So we came to an agreement through dialogue. And that's only when I stepped down from my role and I removed my hat as a dad, imposing the penalty, and I listened. And I put the discussion not on the penalty or on the act that had to be punished, but what had to be done to restore what was going on. And that shift in focus is what restorative justice is beyond the practice. Yeah? So that's restorative justice. The other stuff is restorative justice practice. It's very difficult sometimes to explain what restorative justice is. This is a video, it's a series of webinars I have on YouTube, and it's like I interview different people from around the world on restorative justice. This is a video I did with my son when he was 8, and I was asking him what he understood by restorative justice. So if you want to go and check these videos, there's different ways you can do that. Are the presentations going to be available on the website?
I think yes, they can.
Right, just going to pause for a minute, give the power back to you. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a minute, and if I ask you to visualize a table, what would you see? Open your eyes, as somebody will say, what did you see?
The table at home.
Pardon?
The table at home.
Yeah,
Big table at home.
describe it. Describe it. So what does it look like?
It's 2.5 meters long.
Flat
About
surface,
80 or-
legs.
Yeah, with 4 legs.
Okay, great.
What else?
Close your eyes again. Visualize justice. Open your eyes. What did you see? What did you see? Honestly, there's no right or wrong answer. What did you see?
Punishment, as it was said by the children in your punishment.
Yeah, what did you see? Like, describe it. Like the way that we describe the table, flat surface, legs,
Nothing.
nothing.
No, it wasn't a
You
physical
can't see
object.
anything.
It wasn't a physical object.
It wasn't. Yeah.
Athena, I know we have some Greek.
Yeah. I'm Greek. Yeah.
Athena, the statue, the goddess.
Athena, yeah.
I see people staying at this table, the victim and the aggressor.
Two people sitting in front of the, okay? Two people talking, yes?
A balance.
Balance, yes. Okay. So basically, yeah. So if you, I'm a dinosaur when it comes to technology. So I have never used AI, but I have used Google Images. So when I put this, you usually get hands, people together, or Themida, which is the goddess of justice. Nobody said about prisons. Nobody said about putting people behind bars. They couldn't visualize justice in that way. And yet, when a crime happens, the first thing that we think about is putting people in prison. Yeah, we don't think about the scales of justice. We don't think about ethics. We don't think about the person. We think about that. Now, bear with me. And this is probably kind of I'm trying to zoom out a little bit because we're too focused sometimes, thinking about the issue in a very narrow way. Now taking a step back and maybe looking at philosophy, because what philosophy can help us do is frame things and remind us why we are creating systems like justice systems. Okay? And going back to the days of Aristotle said a division between justice and source of kind of fairness in the value-based system, and then justice in the sense of laws, which are also very important. There's two types of δικαιοσύνη, of justice. There's the written one and then the value-based one. Okay? And other philosophers, like Foucault, talked about the one that is structured, right, has some inherent and ingrained issues within it, one of which is power control. And I won't go into the details of it, and I'm not going to say that this probably is, I mean, some people call me conspiracy theorist, that is all about, Theo's talking about all these theories that there's power and control in the criminal justice system, or you can judge that yourself. What I will say about restorative justice, and I have seen it, and as I said, I moved from being a criminal law barrister to facilitating cases, and then using those cases to kind of articulate arguments within the literature, is the shift between the control of the criminal justice system to, as Niels Christie said in the 70s, conflict as property, giving the conflict back to the individuals and own conflict so that they can do something about it themselves and facilitating that process of resolution. So putting that into context and then moving on to the concerns that you all expressed about the criminal justice system not working well enough, and then what do we do about it, and then what the AI can provide solutions and tools and all those sort of things. For me, it's not an either-or situation, and it is not an in defense of the criminal justice system. It is what it is. The speakers in the morning, there was a lot of criticism about the criminal justice system, a lot about the police. 60% of the police time and probably 70% of barristers' time goes into admin. It's got nothing to do. It's got nothing to do with humans. It's all about recording and writing and scripts and paying admin officers. I mean, most of the causes in chambers is all about administration. you know, that's had nothing to do with the concerns that we'll share today. So if technology can help that, and the overburdened criminal justice system is not that overburdened, you know, maybe that could be a direction, that could be a contribution. And as far as restorative justice is concerned, and the good news, at least, tell me if I'm going on. The good news is that restorative justice is on the rise. You know, it's been regulated at the European level. There is a directive, the Victims Directive. There are articles within it regulating restorative justice. The United Nations have recommendations. The Council of Europe. So at the international level, it exists. It exists in your legislation in the UK. It's within all of stages of the criminal justice system, at the police stage, prosecution, courts, sentencing, prisons, probation. It's all stages of the criminal justice system. It's there, right? That's the good news for restorative justice. And you know, it is being practiced. There's more literature on restorative justice, I think, in criminology than any other theory within criminology. So there's a lot of evidence and there's a lot of theory behind it. And a lot of movement. Now, actually, they're calling restorative justice a social movement. In my organisation, I set up an organisation called Restorative Justice International Institute. We created a pledge, we created a movement, we created a fellowship of practitioners, kind of bringing people together to strengthen what is going on. So that's all the good news. The problem that restorative justice has is that it's kind of portrayed itself as an either-or situation. There's one justice. Well, I don't think there's one justice. There's two types of justice, as I said before, as Aristotle differentiated. And there is a way to work with the criminal justice system. And in fact, you know, I spoke about the two patterns of kind of the structured and the unstructured way of delivering restorative justice. So the structured way would be within the criminal justice system, as I said before. In the unstructured way, it happens, and this is why restorative justice happens, it is majority in the community. So I think you spoke about relationships with the private sector, but also with the civil society sector. You know, what are the connections between the criminal justice system, the formal criminal justice system, or the youth justice system and the civil society? Because most of the restorative justice practices happen in community centres, in the community. This is where restorative justice started. You know, and the important point to make about, I think your point about the criminal justice system, change it. It was structured as a top-down system. You know, it was, you know, before conflicts where between parties, the community would come together. Going back to the ancient civilizations, if conflict will happen, we'll come in a circle and they'll discuss it. In the Middle Ages, when the kingdoms were created, then the criminal justice system was structured as a top-down system. That it is, you can't change an apple. An apple is an apple. It is what it is. But at the same time, justice is being delivered in a different way, and communities do come together to address gaps, whether it's health, whether it's poverty, whether it's justice, and find solutions. For us, the question is how can we work with the two together? And you know, restorative justice has a lot to offer. At the same time, we can't dismiss the criminal justice system. Sorry, I probably make it easy back and forth. Now, we did, I mean, it's coming across as if I'm advocating for restorative justice. I've always sat in the middle, and restorative justice can work well when it does work, but it doesn't always work. So it depends on the situation, it depends on the cases, it depends on the circumstances, and it's a voluntary process. So I can't force you to come into a circle. I can't force you to listen to me. I can't force you to stop looking at your phones. It's up to you whether you want to do that. And restorative justice is based on that assumption that both parties, and there are no victims or offenders, they're harmed parties. Both parties will come together, their community, their families, and voluntarily enter into a process of transformation that involves a lot of pain. For pain to happen, there needs to be willingness. It's a very difficult process, and that is where the center of restorative justice is. Concluding, AI, and we had a lot of questions within the restorative justice movement. with, if restorative justice is so human-centered, how can AI, be used? And because it is being used, and we've got an issue coming up on this issue of AI within the restorative justice field. I think personally we haven't got the answers yet, but that's not a reason for us to dismiss AI. As I said, it could be about administration and support. It could be about something else. But let's ask the questions, because when we ask the questions, then we find the solutions. I think the important thing we're doing here is engaging in those conversations. I don't think it should be dismissed. I think it's a very timely project. I think you're well ahead. You're asking questions before the actual issue comes up. So this project is very timely. And I think it's just the beginning of a series of questions that I think hopefully, and I like to end up on a kind of positive note because there's been a lot of kind of concern going on in the module. Hopefully, by joining up technology, the alternative of a centre complementary approach to justice, the offer for children and young people will be better.
So thank you, Theo, and I'm really grateful that restorative justice was brought, as it's a system that we are dealing with, which tries to center strengthening human agency. And now we would like to pass the floor for Ayca, who will talk about her research focusing on legal designs, which can give some answers and some security for ethical questions and concerns.
Thank you so much. Yes, I will be talking about the legal and ethical aspects of it and try to actually more consider what they look like in the design considerations, which I'm aware that actually earlier today in the morning has already been addressed, and I'm very happy to see that in the development of this actual chatbot. The child rights considerations were really, really important. So I will also, it was helpful for me to, the presentation, sorry. Yeah. It was helpful for me to see that as well, so I will be referring to that. But before I go more to the design aspect, I would like to share a recent publication that I was also involved with as a co-author at the Council of Europe. It was published last week on legal frameworks on children's rights and AI. And so I would like to start to share that actually when we look at different countries, what's happening out there, in addition, except like AI Act, GDPR frameworks, which has been mentioned today. There's not much at all, and I know that most of us probably already know these things. But why I'm mentioning it today is that actually quite relevant to a concept that Theo also mentioned is fairness. And I know that AI-related frameworks are being developed. We are asking questions about what they mean in the context of design for children, in technical aspects as well, for many ways. But what I want to share is that actually we do already have some great frameworks, like for example, fairness in the GDPR that is not, discussed very much. And the way to look at existing laws, existing frameworks and these concepts, and actually bring in more than what regulators and adults already assume. And questioning some of the questions actually Theo also brought up are really important. Is there maybe do I need to come here? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Sorry, that's not. Okay, yeah, this one. So very, very briefly to go back. So current gaps in the laws, suggestions for the way forward, definitely child rights impact assessments, which I will be talking again in a bit, but really important. And there's huge gaps in how things are going on right now. Another work that I was involved last year is with, again, Electoral Institute of the UK's AI children's rights, well-being, transnational frameworks, looking at what's happening out there, what is missing, what is not, what is there. And there is not much when it comes to children's rights. Like in practice, there's a lot of hype mentioning, we all know, quite abstract, high-level concepts, but it's really important to actually think about how these work in practice, especially in really, really specific contexts which I was super interested about to hear today about emotional recognition, for example. And then consider more than, even for example within data protection law, when we talk about data processing, actually remember that it's way more than compliance with data protection law is way more than privacy. It also includes children's rights, it also includes, human rights, and also thinking about well-being considerations, how data processing actually might impact children. So I will go to fairness, and I'm so glad that actually, and I didn't know about Theo's presentation, but I'm really happy that I chose fairness as a concept, because I think it shows it is an important one. First of all, again today, interdisciplinary and multi-stakeholder approaches were mentioned, and Viktória also mentioned that one of the biggest challenges, if I heard correctly, is actually terminology. Speaking to each other, when people come from different disciplines as well. And I think fairness is definitely one of them. And why I'm talking about this, because actually when we are developing a system, or when we are using it, or even when we are assessing, thinking about how it impacts users, the way we assess things, the way we evaluate things, depending on who is doing it, very much depends on how these concepts are understood. And and I think that's really, really important. So going to some reflections on what's going on. So caution, I'm not going to go into detail and talk about ethical risks, legal risks, because these are already being mentioned and in the reports that were shared as well, very much in detail. But so I will be just sharing some insights from our experience from digital future for children, as well as other research that I've been involved. So caution in addressing data-related challenges, as I mentioned, data protection, privacy are interlinked but different. And I'm not going to go into detail of this, but I was really happy to hear that today data protection was actually addressed separately. This is important, especially when it comes to AI and when thinking about design implications, because not always the privacy is really important, and I'm a privacy lawyer, by the way. But also, it is really important to think for a more holistic approach when we think about compliance with data protection laws and actually data processing, data sharing. Sometimes we need to think, I don't say more, but give way more to other rights to be able to make sure that actually what is being done is in the best interest of the children. So again, public-private relationships already mentioned. I think another key thing is that thinking about the relationships with donors, which I think in one of the questions today came up. And I completely understand that from my experience with UN Women as well in the evaluation team. So because being in the evaluation departments, usually you see different stakeholders and data sharing practices there. So to who you're responsible to, involving private sector, public authorities, but also, thinking more than that, and some of the questions that were raised today are really crucial to address those. So I think these are key questions that we should be taking into account when talking about child rights by design, or doing data processing, according to child rights. Participatory design, I will move to the design aspect now a bit before concluding with what it looks like in the next slide. So participatory design, child-centered design, working with design community is great, and we should definitely hear from children, we all know that. But I think it's really important to think about, it's what you're asking children, how do we involve them? And is it just like concerns, hopes, and what's going on, but whether maybe if they're given the opportunity to even challenge some of the concepts that we have in the law today, like how we understand fairness itself, how we assess systems, whether they're fair, or the data processing fair or not, is important. I will give a very concrete example for this. Compliance with fairness in the GDPR is currently based on whether you do harm, whether actually you are causing discrimination, bias, harms, you are asked to avoid that. Who thinks that fairness is just that, or who thinks actually fairness is beyond avoiding unfairness? Probably most of us will say that it's beyond, right? Avoiding, yes. Water here. unfairness. And when it comes to AI, huge challenge is what we have seen in the research at the Institute for Children, although it was in another sector, in the education context, is that, and I think it applies to, pretty much probably like all sectors in the context of AI, we have so many unknowns. We don't know like what harms exactly out there. We can get some of them, but there's so many that is not yet known. So that made me question about, I know that we are all trying to comply with laws, it's that we should, we must, but also question that maybe going one step further, and that is where the ethical bit also comes, doing things better than just they comply with the laws. And I think like the second thing that I was really struck when I did my PhD, which was on fairness, by the way, as well, is actually the second component of compliance with fairness is meeting expectations of data subjects. So children. I haven't seen any research on, what are children's expectations, for example, in specific data protection context. Isn't it amazing that many companies or many organizations claim compliance with the laws, but one of two components of compliance with fairness, which is a must in the GDPR when you design a system, is actually we don't know what they think. So why I'm saying this, because I think it is super important and it's really valuable to, engage the private sector, companies, yes, but also I think we can learn a lot from them. I think Dora mentioned today, but also I think we can learn a lot from what's going wrong and what's not happening as well. So I think this is something worth mentioning. And yes, so just wanted to go to that as well. As a last and probably the most important bit of my presentation is the Child Rights by Design framework that was developed at the Digital Futures Commission back then, now Digital Futures for Children, by Professor Sonia Livingston and Dr. Kukai Podlong. And here this is basically the 11 principles that were mapped out. As you can see, the articles, you're going to see CRC articles there. And this is just a very short version of the toolkit on what child rights by design should look like. But if you go to the website, you will see that it is actually aimed at, and it is very much in detail, step by step, what should be considered when designing systems. It's not specific to AI, but it applies to everything. And this also links back to what I was saying, is that there's so much hype, definitely at the industry level, but there's so much hype at the legal and policy level as well. And actually some of the things that we already have do still apply. And I think it's really important to think about those things in compliance with what's already existing and like how as well, and even in the partnerships with different stakeholders, questioning those. I think that would really help in terms of addressing power imbalances too. So maybe two concrete examples that I really wanted to mention is when it comes to emotion AI, because I was really interested in today's presentation, is freedom of thought and freedom of expression. We talk about a lot about data protection, privacy, data processing. Yes, I love it. But also, these two rights are not thought a lot when it comes to emotion recognition and emotion AI, which I think should be more considered. And another thing is the science behind emotion AI is, I've done research on this, and it's definitely not that great. We know that there's a lot of problems there. But consulting children themselves is an amazing practice. And what I heard today, I understand that there has been a lot done to mitigate these challenges. But one thing that I would like to share and mention is that actually involving neurodiverse children as well, because the expressions, there was a mention of attention, for example. I think these considerations are really important, and not everyone reacts in the same way. So how actually these differences really affect implementation of child rights? Thinking about design or the children's rights, I think that makes a huge difference. So children with ADHD, children with learning disabilities, or any other vulnerabilities. So intersectional approach, I think, is super important. And as a last note, what I would like to share is that was Child Rights by Design framework, and Child Rights Impact Assessment is I did mention it at the beginning of my. I keep being really thirsty. Maybe I talk too fast, that's why. But so having child rights impact assessment as a medium actually for checking and also being accountable when applying these child rights principles, child rights by design principles are really important. So DPIA's data protection impact assessments are must, really important. We have a lot of discussion right now at the Council of Europe level going on, the difference between human rights impact assessment, child rights impact assessment, whether we need extra ones, whether it's really complicated. CRIAs are really important. They're really crucial. And I think context-wise, I'm really happy that today we are discussing. I know I did speak a lot more generally as well, but I think it's really important to, when having these discussions, think about what they mean in a specific context. And I think this is an excellent platform and discussion to be able to do that. So yes, on the last note, maybe I can finish by saying we are looking for responsible ways to do things, responsible AI, ethical AI, trustworthy AI. New frameworks are coming. But I think the main question here is basically just asking ourselves whether through design, specific features, whether in engagement with donors, being able to negotiate things has been you mentioned some today, or engaging with private sector when needed if needed. And I think the main question is really shifting the power imbalance. So whether we are able to do that or not, and engaging children in a really meaningful way, and also giving them the chance to really intervene and change things, not at the consent level maybe. Provision of information. Even those are really important, when I talked about intersectional approaches. Sorry, but also, I forgot what to say, but at all levels, actually. So basically, let's shift that power imbalance and let's be very careful, before actually deploying anything, and especially pay attention to these partnerships that we have been discussing today. Wendy also mentioned quite a lot, and I agree with her. And we have some really good toolkits, really good tools. Other organizations are doing really good work too. But let's, we come together and really think about how do these apply in practice. And when we talk about data, let's go beyond privacy and wider ethics discussions. Yes, this is how I want to finish it. I couldn't finish, but yes. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for giving this broader overview. And now we would like to invite Boglárka to share her insights, as she was following up the project development closely, and she was making her research on the ethical concerns and legal concerns she pointed out, and also created some guidance how to avoid these concerns, how to mitigate these concerns. So thank you for sharing.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for the invitation. And here's a study that we'll be able to grab even in a physical format from the desk there. I'm really also grateful, and I have to stress this out, that Dora has been a great editorial help for this study, which couldn't have happened without her, and of course the Commission's support, you have to say. So let's jump into the issue right away. It's been already mentioned by a few of you before, the ethical framework when it comes to children's rights, but I would like to give a bit of a more broader overview, since this is quite an interdisciplinary topic. And so, as we have seen a lot of ethical frameworks dealing with the issue of AI, but less dealing with specifically the issue of children and the implications of AI on children's rights. And why it is bad? Because children need a differentiated treatment because of the fact that they are still in their evolving capacities, in their evolving developmental capacities, and the same AI effects can have for adults can have no negative impacts, but on the other hand, for children it can have really huge concerns. And so at this point we have to look at children, not from a legal perspective, not from a children's rights perspective, but also from a child developmental perspective, and stress the importance that our brain, as I just know it because of this really important and super publication which has been very recently published by neuroscientists, and it is called The Future of Child Development in the AI Era. I really recommend you to check this out. So our brains are still evolving until our 25 years, which means that these environmental impacts that we get from AI can have really wrong and devastating impacts on children if they encounter AI at a specific age, for instance, at a sensitive period of their lifetime or their childhood, where the AI's effect is much stronger than. So that's why it's really important to bear all these considerations in mind, and also, of course, the specificities of each and every child, so the individual needs. For instance, as Ayca mentioned, the neurodivergent children are really specifically impacted when it comes to AI as well. So I will just jump into the next slide because of the time constraints that we have, and we are approaching our lunch, so everyone is getting hungry, so I will just move on fastly. But this is just to give an overview of why is it then important to treat children within this context of their interactions with AI in a really sensitive way and a preventative approach, and this do no harm approach, and that also Ayca mentioned the importance of CRIAs as well to be conducted. And I think that was, I don't remember who said it before, but one of our speakers also highlighted the issue of AI washing, so that AI is, it was Wendy, right? She was mentioning that AI is being used all the time for like everything, like it's a magic, and we really have to be careful not to bring an added value for the AI use when it comes to the context of children. So to jump into the concrete ethical issues that have been already discussed a bit before, but I will go a bit more deep into some of them. So the privacy, I won't, because it's already touched upon. It's a bit already, like boring. But the other issue of the anthropomorphic design, is really something new and something that is not really given enough consideration, because we tend to attribute human-like characteristics to also AI tools, and when we are interacting with AI, children do this as well because they want to relate to these kind of human-like conversations that they are doing with a chatbot. So this is quite a big concern, and it is very much interlinked with hallucinations that we have already touched upon, which are these inaccurate or not concrete and not good answers that AI can provide when it comes to these interactions with children and AI. And so let's move on to the concrete examples. So it is really important to emphasize the importance of preventing the over-reliance on the chatbots, because as we have seen, there is a very concrete example that happened like a few months ago in the US with Character AI, which is a companion chatbot. And there is currently a lawsuit going on against Character AI because of the alleged implications of it in the suicide of a teenager boy. Because it is really also amongst confident chatbots, Character AI is really specifically very much involving one, which is really addictive, and it so it has really big risks for teenagers and children. And also, when we touch upon this anthropomorphic design, we have to see the EU's AI Act, and and maybe just contemplate a bit about the fact whether this anthropomorphic design can amount to this kind of deceptive or manipulative design, which is already regulated under Article 5. These are some considerations that still needs to be addressed in the future. But what is really important to emphasize is that it's a complementary tool, so it shouldn't be used without human oversight, and there is, in this domain of social science and of child protection, children really need to be referred to human people and have human guidance. And there are two very interesting publications that I have crossed during my literature review, which kind of introduce this problematic of the LLM's duty to communicate uncertainty, because usually when you interact with a human person, you don't come across such a problematic. But if you communicate with an LLM, you have the impression that you are talking to a human, and you kind of say that okay, that's a reliable answer, and that basically doesn't need to be inquired upon. So this can lead to also kind of a careless speech that LLMs can deliver by saying inaccurate or false answers due to these hallucinations, or also just saying really dangerous things to children. So, for instance, in case of a child revealing distress because of a traumatic experience and asking for help for an LLM, it is really important that the LLM answers in an accurate way and doesn't say, oh sorry, I don't know this question, but rather says that these are the human counselors that you can address to, and so this is an issue to be considered. Yes, and with the hallucinations, we can also end up in a risk of unauthorized practice of law, which is why it is really important for such LLMs that are designed for legal information providing for children, that they are limited to only legal information provision and not legal advice. So legal advice is only something that you can give if you have an individualized assessment of the particular situation of the child that you are talking about, and it is so not legal advice and nor individual assessment. So the complementarity principle again here comes to the point, and it says that these technical features that Viktória, I think, was already mentioning, they are for safeguarding children in this whole chatbot, so that it cannot learn from user interactions, for instance. So when it comes to bias, which is another issue with AI ethics and children, it is interesting to see from the literature that children are usually seeing chatbots as really private and unbiased and non-discriminatory, and this is a good thing. And also from the adult's perspective or the professional's perspective, we can have this kind of approach that chatbots can be a good solution to deter these bias that are inherently within the child protection system or whenever children encounter humans. So this is the expectation, and that's why it is especially important to minimize the bias within the system, like the AI system, to kind of answer these expectations as well in reality. So that needs a curated data set, and also that the AI cannot learn from the conversation, so that it cannot hallucinate and not produce bias. Okay, the privacy we have already discussed. And so out of this whole literature review that I've gone through when conducting this study, it can be seen that there are, as Ayca also mentioned, a lot of ethical and legal kind of principles in the general, but in the concrete case, the practical designing, how to design practically these tools, these AI tools for children, this is lacking. So that's why I tried to kind of summarize the main limitations and the potentials that can be taken as a takeaway. So this is for the sake of transparency, there is an explanation that needs to be done for the child in a child-friendly way about the specific support that is provided, so that does not amount to legal advice. Also, a very important consideration of the child safeguarding is that chatbots are not suitable for assessing and resolving high-risk situations. So there needs to be good answers, like good prompts for chatbots to answer such questions in an ethical and safe way. So again, the complementarity or auxiliary principle and also the other considerations which were already based upon before. And to conclude, whether this is an efficient tool or not, this is something in the making. So it is right now happening with all of us involved in it, so we cannot really see at this point of time whether it's going to really be an efficient tool and a safe tool. But for now, what we can at least say is that for at least awareness raising, it can be a good tool. For instance, there was literature on that, research on the potential of AI tools in bullying prevention that was used. And in the end, this is just a guidance, again, wrapping up all the considerations that needs to be taken into account when designing and developing such tools. So child participation, added value, and also maybe these limitations, and also embrace the child user's expectations, but with a child safeguarding perspective. And what is really important, and also the AI Act does point out, it's the AI literacy. So the promotion of AI literacy, not only among children, but also the professionals working in this field. And so the most important thing is to in the end, get reliable answers and really useful answers for children. And I think that's all. I tried to.
Thank you very much. And lunch is closed, so I'm going to restrict only one question for the panelists and then a few if they're on the floor. And my question would be that maybe you didn't notice, but this panel and this discussion has the power to create an official suggestion of the future AI design team. And my question would be that, taking this opportunity and this power, which expertise or a concrete person would be that you would put on this list, or what pisses you off who were not included yet in the design? If you have an idea about that.
So I think a child development specialist, like it's really an important thing to have this psychological aspect also in mind, and also because of these two interesting articles that I didn't have the chance to present, but are really very intriguing, and it's about the common sense making with LLMs, so that we collaborate. We are in an era where we collaborate in the common sense making with LLMs, so AI and human people are collaborating, and what can this bring? It does disrupt our societies, the norms that we live in, and all these things. So a hermeneutical, if it says like this, I'm not sure for the pronunciation, so a hermeneutical expert who is really keen on these linguistic things and everything would be, I think, very beneficial to have on board.
Again, waving the flag of RJ, restorative justice, co-design, participation, dialogue, restorative justice, connections. So you can't have co-design, you can't have participation without all affected parties being involved. You know, we've learned to kind of deliver justice from the platform. You know, judges sit on the platform, barristers wear wear wigs and gowns. We separate ourselves from the others. Let's ask who's been affected by this, and in a circle, invite everybody who's been affected in a power sharing process to allow the co-design process to take place. I think tokenistic approaches to youth participation have been so, I mean, the European Commission funded projects that were youth-led, were not youth-led. You know, all this kind of tokenistic approaches of using not just young people, but any individual or any label that you might want to use, so that you can use it as a lever to achieve something. Right? That concerns me. You know, having the genuine intention, and then implementing that intention is so difficult. You spoke about the methodology. It's just, we need to be honest about the difficulties first, and secondly, capture the failings. So when you learn from these children and young people, when you fail, write it down. Why did you fail? You know, it's not a bad thing. I always say to my team, when you do dissertation research, there will be more innovation. You spoke about failure. You know, innovation is all about failure. It's all about testing, right? So if you're funded in the European Commission, and trust me, I work for the European Commission, I monitor projects, and I just go crazy when all these deliverables you have to upload, have to be uploaded, and you can't deviate from it. It's just so difficult. But you know, you have to be honest and capture those learnings for us to become better, right? So let's be honest about the learning process. Let's be honest about the failings. And I'm not sure I'm answering your question, but what I am trying to say is that there is no right person for it. The right person is in the genuine process of co-design.
And you also said something which pisses you off, so it's
So, probably I shouldn't have said it. I'm not representing the Commission, and I didn't say that I was representing the Commission. Sometimes I do, not on this occasion.
Yeah, I think that was really, really interesting. And when you first asked the question, I was going to say, actually, someone who worked with children, who has the legal background, but also knows the challenges, you know, with working with the design team. So basically, someone who knows quite a lot. But actually, the point you made about genuine participation and stakeholders, I think involving direct stakeholders, even indirect stakeholders, like those who might not be directly impacted, but who might have, things to bring. So doing that mapping first and having this, that first, I think is really, really important. And I know that it might not be really practical, but it is so important to be able to achieve what you refer to there. And also mental health, somewhat I know, because today we're discussing if this could be a speculative person, someone who might not exist as well. And the more I add more, basically, someone who understands about, the mental health implications, everything, which is probably not one person, but, everyone, like you said. And just one last thing about, I think that's something, I don't say piss me off, but I found quite, annoying, and also looking, how we could actually make things better is that when it comes to participation, child-led participation, working a lot with the child, design community as well, is amazing research out there. But when you look at there, it's child rights, messages of the child, it's just a mention. And when I look at actually how children are involved, I have so many things to say. I'm sure everyone, who works on ethics and law as well would say. On the design-related research, and when I look at more policy and legal bits, there are already a lot of things that are missing there, and some of them are really because of the gaps in knowledge, misunderstandings, not speaking the same language. So I think just bringing everything together and making sure that both communities, at least from my experience, what I say, law, policy, and design, can really maybe bring something that is genuinely participatory and maybe stakeholder-led, like children-led. That would be really ideal. And yes, that's.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the answers.